Hello, it's Carrie here, and this episode is for anyone who has a massive desire to want to create something, whether you have this idea, this dream, you want to create something. It could be a book, it could be a course, it could be a membership, it could be just this desire bubbling up inside of you to create a business, making money, doing something you love, whatever it is. So you've got this idea or desire or dream, and you just feel like it is hopeless, if you feel in despair, if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, this is for you. I made this for you because I know how it feels to be in that place. It feels dreadful, but I know how you can get out to the other side and how you can really get into the flow, how you can tap into your zone of genius to be able to really get on your way with what you want to do. So if you're nodding along and you're like, yes, Carrie, this is me right now, then definitely stay tuned for this episode. You are watching the She Means Business show with me, Carrie Green. I'm the founder of the Female Entrepreneur Association and the author of the best-selling book, She Means Business. And every single week, I'm going to be talking with you about how you can turn your ideas into a wildly successful business and actually live the life of your dreams. You can do this, and I'm so excited to show you how. So let's get started. Okay, so I was journaling and I was going back through this journal and I found this entry that I wanted to share with you. So this is from Tuesday, the 2nd of February. I think it must have been 2016. And I said, I have been driving myself to despair lately, trying to write this book. I am not getting anywhere. I just feel like I'm procrastinating so much and not really getting anything done at all at the moment. So this evening, I created a plan for myself to get on track with things. I need to put myself in the zone, and so I choose to. I know I can do it. I just need to open up and do it. How many of you have felt like you really, really want to do something, like you feel it in every cell of your being that you want to do this thing, whether it's writing that book or that course or that membership, whatever it is, you want to do it, you really want to do it, but you just feel like you're not getting anywhere. You are in despair because it's almost so painful because you don't want to be stuck where you are. You don't want to be where you are. You just want to be there. You want to have done it. You want it to be out in the world. Yes, that is how I felt that. So, obviously I felt that, and it's painful. I kind of think of it now like, it's kind of like giving birth. It's like you just want the baby to be there and to be healthy and to be holding it in your arms. But in order for that to happen, you have to push that thing out of you. And so there's, you have to do a lot of waiting. You have to then push it out, which, is bloody painful. And it's, you have moments of utter despair when you're giving birth. And yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like we've got to, it's not easy to birth our ideas and our desires out into the world sometimes. So I also want to share with you some months later on the 18th of October 2016. Little did I know that 2 years later I'd be having my son on that day. I put, oh my goodness, I've finished my book. I've handed my baby over. Actually talking about it like it's a baby, and I've let her go. I can't believe I've reached this point. It's been such a crazy, amazing and emotional journey. I read through the entire text today and for the first time felt proud. While reading the final chapter, my eyes welled up. She's done. Now I need to share her with the world. I've put so much love into her. I hope people feel it. I remember being so elated when I finished my book. I was just honestly over the bloody moon because it had just been like this just painful pulling it out of me. But I know it's been the same pretty much when I created my membership, when I've created courses, when I've created my stationery line, when I've had ideas to do something and I've really wanted to do it. That has always been that, that time after the idea comes up that I have dipped into that valley of despair where there's been moments where I've thought this is impossible, I can't do this, felt like quitting, felt just unbelievably frustrated. But I've really learned how to actually push through and get to the other side and to get to that place where you've done it, you've created that thing, you're enjoying the success, you're allowing it to flow to you. So I want to share that with you because it is annoying when you're there. So first things first, if you are in that place, it's normal. And one thing I think you should acknowledge is that it's actually really bloody good, because it means that you're on your way already. You're on your way to creating something amazing. You're already in it. You've got that idea and you've made that decision that you want this, and you want it so badly that you feel the despair and frustration because you want it. You feel it in every cell of your being. You know that's yours and you want it. So that is an amazing step, that you are already feeling that. So allow yourself to feel that, allow yourself to experience that, and know that you are on your way to something incredible. So the first thing that I do is, when I realize I am like really stuck and I'm procrastinating and I'm not getting anywhere, is I realize I need to reframe. Now, all of us have different situations in our life and different reasons for why resistance comes up. But for me, it's really just getting out of that place where I feel like it's impossible and hopeless, and getting on a new wavelength. So, for example, one of the best things you can do when you're reframing is you can just start to remember why you're doing what you're doing. Why do you want to do it? Why will this change your life? Why does it mean something to you? So for me, when I wanted to write my book, it just felt like in my bones it was something that I wanted to do. Just something that was there. It was not going away. It had just been knocking at me for so many years. And I just knew I had to do it. And I knew how I was going to feel when I would see my book on the shelves in bookstores, to know, like, to get tagged in people reading my book and tagging me in it, and their feedback and hearing like what they've thought of it. I knew that that's what I wanted. And so I would focus on like why I was doing it, to help me to remind me, you're doing this, and this is not a time to give up on yourself and this dream. You know you want this so badly, and I would like imagine how it would feel to walk into a bookstore. I would imagine how it would feel to experience it being done. So take some time to experience what you want being done. Imagine it. How does it feel? Connect with that feeling, connect with that experience, connect with the emotion of it being done, and allow yourself to sit in the energy of this is done. This is done. And that's what I would do in my book. I would sit in the energy of this is done. I feel it being done. I feel this happening. And it just really helped me. So definitely take some time to practice that as a way to reframe. Something else that has really helped me is to zoom out of life. Because sometimes when I'm I've got this idea, I'm starting on the creation process, I get caught up in the weeds of the day-to-day. I get caught up in the little things of the process. So for example, there might be one tiny step I don't know how to do. And instead of moving on to the next little tiny step, I just get stuck on that one tiny step and I can't seem to move past it. And then I get stuck, and then it just all starts to unravel. So I find if I zoom out of life and I think to myself, when I'm 80 or 90 or however old, I'm looking back on my life, what decision would I make today to help me to progress? What would she want me to do? And often I find it really helpful to think, what would she do? What would my future self do? My future, more wiser self, what would she do right now, looking back at life? What would the decision she would take? Like, how would she handle this right now? And zooming out of life, and also realizing that this is it. This is one life. And I thought, when I was writing my book, I thought, this is it. I do want to do this. And yes, it's hard, but I'm going to figure this out. I'm here to figure it out. So that felt like when I would get stuck on something, I would just look at I would just kind of relax into it more and be like, okay, I am stuck, but where's that next little step I need to take? What is that next little step? What is that? What do I need to get help with? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? Is there something else I can do? What is that next thing? Otherwise, you stay stuck on the same thing, going round and round and round in circles. And it's just so annoying. So zooming out of life, looking at the bigger picture of life can be a really powerful exercise to reframe. And then finally, on reframing, getting inspired. So I really did find this so instrumental. Like, I felt like it was hard to create from a mindset of, oh, I can't do this. It was just too much. It was too heavy. So I would literally go out. I was just reading in this journal, actually, and I'd go and listen to things. So I'd listen to Esther and Jerry Hicks, Ask and It Is Given. I'd watch inspirational YouTube videos on YouTube. There was a Jack Canfield thing I think I'd written about in here that I'd gone and listened to. I'd listen to things that would fire me up, inspire me, make me believe in myself, make me believe I can do this. And I really filled my mind with that like with everything that told me you can do this, there's a way through it and you can do it. And it really helped me. So whatever gets you inspired, whether it's going for a walk in nature, which is such a powerful thing to do, whether it's like journaling or meditating or listening to inspirational videos and podcasts, listening to inspirational music, watching an inspirational movie that just really gets you fired up and makes you think, I can do this. I'm going to make it happen. Just do that and constantly remind yourself to get inspired. And I think it is a constant practice because inspiration wears off. So you have to really be intentional about staying inspired. And I find from that place of inspiration, creating and getting out of my own way becomes so much easier. So the second thing then is like, once you've reframed, the second thing is like, okay, so how do you tap into your zone of genius so that you can actually do this? And obviously this is different for all of us and it depends on what you're creating. But I found, for example, when I was writing my book, that staring at a blank screen was just hell. I just looked at that screen and I thought, I don't know where to begin. So for me, where I would begin was by speaking. For me, when I'm speaking, I find I can like get into my zone of genius. So I don't know whether you've ever experienced this, but have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you've started talking about the thing, you know, your thing, and you've just found yourself, it's just flowing and you're just saying things and part of you's wondering, where is this coming from? It's just flowing. It's just coming through. And you say things and you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe I said that. Like, I don't know if that's ever happened to you, like when you've been chatting. Again, it could just be giving advice to somebody. It could, you know, any kind of conversation. But what I find is that when we're having an organic conversation, we allow ourselves to flow. And as we begin to relax into that knowing within us, we like just stuff starts to intuitively come up and we just start speaking our truth, you know, louder and clearer. And so what I would find that when I was writing my book is I would make voice notes. I would get my phone and I would make voice notes and I would start speaking. And that can be quite difficult because like, well, where do I begin? I pick up my phone and I start talking. And like, I'm going to talk about this topic. And then it's like, this is really awkward. I don't really know what I'm saying. But what I found was when I pushed through that and I kept just talking and blabbering on, that finally I would get into like a zone where I was like saying stuff that was useful. But what was even more helpful for me, I find when I'm creating, whether it's a course or anything, whether it's a piece of content, whatever I'm doing, talking it out can really help me. Me personally, that really helps me to get into the flow of like, what is it that I need? What is this clarity that I'm seeking? Like how, you know, it helps me to shape it, helps me to think of new ideas. So if there's anyone you can sit down with and talk to about your ideas, what you want to create. So if you want to write a book or create a piece of content or a course or whatever it is, even sitting down with somebody and just having a conversation saying, I really just want to sit and talk to you about this. And then just see where does the conversation go? And if they ask you questions and like they're, you know, you could ask them to, you know, say, will you ask me some questions on this topic? You could even give them the questions to ask you, but just naturally let yourself flow and see if you can find that zone of genius and do it with it having a little bit of fun. If you do it to find your zone of genius, you probably won't find your zone of genius. So just do it just to have fun, just to experiment, just to play around and just see what comes through. But I often find when you speak and you talk, it really does help you to really tap into your own, you know, your zone of genius. You could also, depending on what works for you, some people want, you know, you could journal. So get a pen and a piece of paper and write it out, connect with yourself. Sometimes I find when I'm doing intuitive writing and I've got ideas that I'll start writing and I'll just be writing a load of nonsense, but then I'll get into the flow and again, things will just start flowing through me and I'll just be writing and writing without editing. So you're not writing the finished piece of anything. You're just tuning in with yourself and allowing what wants to come through you to come through you. And again, some people draw it out. So sketches and drawing, just getting creative and looking at, in the past, if you had an experience where you really feel like you're in your zone of genius, when was that time? What were you doing? And how did you feel like you connected to your zone of genius? What would you say? And when I say zone of genius, I mean when you literally feel like you're in the flow with creating, you're in the flow with what you're talking about, with what you're saying. When have you experienced that? Where just stuff is just coming through, that resistance is low and it's just flowing. And that's the space you want to get yourself into. So whatever it takes to get you there, think about like, how am I going to get there? How do I get to that place where it's just flowing through me? So one of the things that I do, which is a bit woo-woo, but I did this a lot when I wrote my book, was I call it the beam of light. And I literally imagine this beam of light coming down from the universe, whatever, the stars, and this beam of light coming down and like connecting with the top of my head, and this white light then going through all the cells of my being, and my body is just like absorbing all this amazing white light that's just incredible, and it's filtering through every cell. And I feel grounded. I imagine my feet grounded firmly, but I just feel this light filling me up. And I literally I say in my mind, thank you for the divine guidance. Thank you for working through me. And I just imagine that like the universe, or whatever you want to call it, is like working through me. So, and I kind of feel like it's just tapping into tapping into my higher self, tapping into the part of me that knows the truth, the part of me where that desire resides, the part of me that's there, but is covered up with so much crap, so much self-doubt, so much fear, so many worries. It's so hard for me to get to that heart of it. So for me, feeling that light and connecting with my higher self and just allowing what needs to come through me, like just doing a little ritual around that helps me so much. Like when I was writing my book, I'd be sat on my sofa with my laptop on my knee, imagining this beam of light coming down and imagining being this vessel where the words could pour through me. And I would just say, allow the words to pour through me out onto the screen. And I would just imagine that was flowing through, I'd created this channel where it could come through. And sometimes I would write things, I'd be like, where the hell does that come from? There was this entire chapter and I was like, I don't know where that came from. Like, I hadn't really consciously thought of that concept before. It was just something that just came through and was just there on the page. And I was like, well, I'm going to go with it because I really quite like that idea. So I just played around with it, and I do this whenever I'm creating. It's just finding a way to get out of your own crap, to get out of the way of the stuff that can hold us down, weigh us down, that's been built up, throughout our whole entire life. For me, this massive thing I get stuck on is that I'm not good enough. And it just, after looking at it and thinking about it, it just really stems from being a kid and not being good enough in school and, all this stuff that happened. And it's hard that stuff can just wreak havoc on us. And I know all of us go through different experiences that can really just create, hold us back and create a lot of resistance. So I find the beam of light exercise can be really powerful, and just allowing yourself to really tune in with the part of you that knows, the part of you that has the answers, the part of you that's within you that on a day-to-day basis sometimes we don't connect with enough. So try that beam of light exercise just to connect and just do that little ritual to get it flowing through. So talking it out, writing it out, drawing it out, whichever one feels good for you, having conversations with people about what you want to create, maybe getting them to interview you, recording the interviews. Please record the interviews. If you can do voice notes, make sure you're recording the voice notes. And then what I found was transcribing it. So I would transcribe everything, and then I would have stuff on there, and it would be real. It's not in my head anymore. It's on paper. And so transcribing it is really, really helpful. And I'll put some tools in the show notes of a resource where you can transcribe things really, really easily. So then the third thing is to break it all down. So once you've kind of found this where you can tap into yourself, your zone of genius, you want to break everything down, because if you think about this, what you want to do, it can be so big and it can be so overwhelming, because it is so big. So how are you going to break it all down? And it's really about taking tiny, tiny steps. So if you've got what you want to create, what's the tiniest steps you can think of that you need to take? Tiny, tiny, tiny steps. So for me, something I found really helpful, especially when I was writing my book, was doing Post-it notes. So I got loads of Post-it notes and I stuck them all over the wall, and I just wrote on each Post-it note a concept or an idea or something that I wanted to put in the book. And as I went, I started to organize and color code them into different sections of the book. But it gave me the ability to just move things around from one to the other and just be like, okay, this is an idea I've got. I think it might go over there. Actually, no, it's going to go here. So it just enabled me to play around with it, thinking about the big, big picture, how could you break it all down, get some post-its out, and think about that, just breaking it down, and keeping it really, really simple. The tinier the step, the easier it's going to be to do, the less resistance you'll have, the more doable it becomes. But if you have some really big step, or if you haven't broken it down, what you might be trying to do is take step 10 before you've taken step 1. You're trying to figure out how step 10 is going to work, but you can't figure that out because you're not at step 10, but it means you're not getting started on step 1. But if you break it all down into these tiny steps, and then you're like, right, this is where I need to start. I'm going to take this tiny step, take this tiny step. I'm not going to even think about that tiny step ahead of time. I don't even have a real clear sense of what I need to do for that tiny step. I just know that's a step at some point in the future. But it gives yourself permission to not have to worry about that now. So just really breaking it all down. And then the fourth thing finally is just scheduling your time. So I find that and again, it's an individual thing, but for me with the book, if I had to make space for the book. I had to make space for the book to come through. And what happens is that without me making that space, it was hard to I was always busy doing something else. There was always something else more pressing, because it was easy to put it off, because it felt heavy. It felt hard to get into it, because I knew that I wanted to do it so badly, and it felt like I was climbing a huge mountain. And so, yes, doing all these things, breaking it down, reframing, they're really powerful. But at the end of the day, if you don't create space for this idea to come through, then it's going to be really hard for it to come through. So create space. Literally make some time in your week where that is just space for you to work on this idea, space for you to just tune in with it, to see what's going on with it, to do the beam of light exercise, to do your post-it notes, to work on a tiny idea. But you've got to create space to work on the tiny ideas that are part of the big idea. And if you can set aside, I don't know, a few hours a day, or maybe more hours than that, or maybe it's only 30 minutes, but you have to set it aside for yourself. So I'm going to show up for myself on this time, this day, this time. I'm showing up for myself. I'm showing up for my dream. I'm creating space to make this my reality. But you've got to create that space. Even from an energetic perspective, creating that space for yourself is going to be so, so powerful. So think about when are you going to dedicate time to your ideas and to bringing them to life? For me, especially with the book, with the course, with every little thing I've created, I've needed to create that space. I've needed to feel that space in my bones, it's a non-negotiable space I've created for myself, and make it non-negotiable for yourself. That's when you're going to show up for yourself, for your dreams, for what you want, because you want this so badly, and it's yours for the taking, but you just have to show up and take the tiny steps. So it kind of all starts with this reframing, believing in yourself again, believing your idea, getting excited about your idea and why you're doing it and why this is going to change your life. And then looking at how you're going to get into that zone of genius, and knowing that you can get connected with yourself and with the idea and what's truly within you that needs to come out into the world, and how you can really connect with that and grab onto it. And then how, breaking it all down into the teeny tiniest little steps so that it is doable, so there's less resistance, and then making the space and for you to work on these tiny steps, and just taking tiny steps. And I tell you what, it was a bunch of tiny little steps that got me to that book being finished, and then got me to launching it. And you're going to have ups and downs. I just randomly open my journal as one page. I've literally done hardly any work, and I can't handle it anymore. I feel completely lost and disconnected. This, that was on the 24th of July, 2016. So a few months out from finishing it's an emotional roller coaster. It really is. You've got to really, stick at it. It is an incredible, crazy, emotional journey when you want to take an idea or a desire that you have within you and to make it your reality. And we definitely dip into that valley of despair, because there's things you don't know how to do. All those fears, doubts, and worries come up. All that stuff comes up. There's a lot of resistance, but if you can find a way to get back to you and to really connect with the truth of what needs to come out of you, and the really heart and soul of what it is you want to share, what it is you want to create, and just reconnect with yourself on it, and then break it down, take tiny steps and just keep going, you can make the most amazing things happen. And I think people think that sometimes success, creating that 7-figure course or that international best-selling book or whatever it is like this big step, but it's not. It's just these tiny, tiny, tiny little steps people take over and over again. And you can fall off the bandwagon so many blooming times. I've fallen off the bandwagon so many times. I've been consistent. I've been inconsistent. I've been organized. I've been messy. I've been really inspired. I've been utterly demotivated. I've been on fire. I've been in despair. Like, I've been all of the things. But the one thing that I have done is I've just, okay, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep going. Even at the times when I felt like quitting and I felt like, oh, this is so hopeless and really doubting myself, I've just thought, no, keep going. Like, I mean, literally zoom out of life. Think, no, this is my life and I want to do this and I want to figure out a way and I want to make it amazing. And I'm not prepared to settle for this because I don't want this. I want my desires. I want my dreams. I want to make a difference in this world. I want my life to mean something and to matter for me, for what that means for me and how that makes me feel. So that's the only thing. So I just thought I would share all this with you because you are here to create something incredible, and what your ideas matter and you matter. And I feel like sometimes we don't hear it enough. You know, it's not like we often walk around telling each other, you matter. Like, you know, we don't. But the reality is you do. And it can be really challenging. And especially, you know, when we see social media and we see people's like front stage, front of house, where it all looks perfect, it all looks amazing. You don't see the things going on behind the scenes of like the struggle. And, you know, and also so often I see people talk about it should be easy and, you know, all this stuff. And I get it. I don't, you know, you don't want to hustle yourself into the ground or whatever, you know, but the reality is that it, you know, trying to do anything that you've never done before, anything amazing, definitely requires growth, and growth is not always easy. Growth comes with definitely painful patches, no matter what it is you want to grow at. And I think we forget that. And so I wanted to share this with you to say, I've been to the depth of despair when it comes to getting something out of my head and creating it. But you can go there, and you can also keep taking the tiny steps to bring yourself back and to do it. And I think everyone who's created something truly amazing has probably experienced those depths of despair too. So I hope all those things really help you. Reframe, remember why you're doing it. Zoom out, remember the bigger picture of life and the whole journey here, you know, is limited. Really get inspired and keep getting inspired, make it something that you get really intentional about, you know, then tap into your zone of genius. So do the beam of light exercise. Think about how you do tap into that zone of genius within you, how you do get into the flow, how you really connect with yourself, and just do that, connect with yourself, get into the flow, talk it out, write it out, draw it out, whatever works best for you, have conversations about it. And then break it all down, teeny, tiny steps, really teeny, tiny steps. And don't get hung up on step 10 if you've not done step 1. Use post-it notes, put them around to help you to break it all down. And then finally, create space. Create space for this idea to come through you. Create space so you know when you're working on it, you know, what day, what time, and just do it. And keep doing it. And even if you're like, oh God, I've fallen off the bandwagon this week, just pick it back up. You can pick it back up. Never forget that you can do this. You can create something so amazing. It's exciting. So if you want more help and support, we are here for you. We've got tons and tons of resources. You can always come and join us over inside of our membership if you're not part of it. If you want to build a successful online business, then definitely come and join us over there for the most amazing amount of support, the best online entrepreneurial family you will ever be part of, and just so many incredible business masterclasses to help you actually do what you want to do and in terms of building a successful business. And we've got, lots of free resources too. So I'll leave all of that over in the show notes on the Female Entrepreneur Association. And I will see you next week for another episode of the She Means Business Show. I hope you loved this week's episode of the She Means Business Show. If you want more help and support to build a wildly successful business, then join hundreds of thousands of women and become an FEA insider. You'll get access to some of our amazing freebies, to our bonuses, to our giveaways, to so much good stuff. Head over to femaleentrepreneurassociation.com/insider to get all of the goodness. And I will see you next week for another episode of the She Means Business Show.